Welcome back, everybody. Derrick Soo, your East Oakland advocate. Well, to all your mothers out there, happy Mother's Day. And I just wanted to say a personal happy Mother's Day to you. My mother passed away 23 years ago suddenly. And um, I wanted to kind of talk about that because it was a really interesting thing. It was almost like my mother knew when she was going to leave this earth. And and then after she left the earth, she still contacted me uh, right after her death. We'll get to that in just a moment. But anyway, back in 2001, and my mother called me up, and she knew I had a really busy schedule back at that time, and I was all over the place. And so she called me right at the top of New Year's of 2001 and said, I need to have all your sister, all the nieces together so that we can have a party. I want to give the grandkids their college fund money. And it was there was no special thing, and she took us by surprise. My sister and her kids setting a deadline, literally a deadline, and with that deadline, within 72 hours, she had passed away. So anyway, we had the party and everything, and she gave out the checks, and it was really interesting because the way she was acting, it was like this was the last time she was going to see everybody together, and we did it on the last day that we possibly could because of my schedule, my sister's schedule. The kids, they're always available, but I picked up my parents, took them out to my sister's place, and pretty mostly uneventful. And then we came back and dropped my parents off, and I said, goodbye, and we'll see you again shortly, and that was it. And 2 days later, because we all met on a Sunday, on Tuesday morning, she passed away, or actually Tuesday night she passed away, and it was Wednesday morning when I was notified. But here's what happened that Tuesday night on her passing, and for those of you that are believe in a higher power. Uh, this will help reinforce that for those of you that don't believe in a higher power or are agnostic. Uh, this could give you some information that could change your mind. And this was something that really happened. And my mother and I had always been close. My sister was not close to either of my parents all throughout her life, pretty much. And she was, um, uh, my mother at one point even said that my sister was a mistake and she shouldn't have had her at knowing what she knew now. But then also at the same time, my father in his final week of life also said the same thing about my sister. So uh, she has been a very sore spot, but she was a bright spot for my mother in the sense that my sister provided three grandchildren, three granddaughters, and so anyway, back to that morning or that Tuesday night. I went to bed. I'm asleep, and back then, because of my work, I usually went to bed somewhere around 10 o'clock, and so and I'm up at 4:30 the next morning to head out the door to get to my business down in the South Bay to check in with my staff sergeant and see what transpired overnight. So anyway, um, 11:30 that night, I was awakened by a tapping on my shoulder, which was uh, I lay I was laying flat on my back, which was unusual to begin with because I'm a side sleeper. So I'm on my back, and then I'm getting a tapping on this shoulder right here, which is the end of the bed, and so it's like, person was tapping my shoulder to get my attention, and so woke me up. I opened one eye, I don't see anything. I open two eyes. I don't see anything. I say, well, maybe I was just dreaming on that. And then I close my eyes, go back into my resting state. And then once again, the tapping started. Like, what in the world? And this time I opened both eyes right away to try and catch whatever it was, and couldn't see anything, but I could feel the presence there. And that was because of my chi training. My chi training allows me to feel things that and sense things that are present that you cannot see with your eyes or maybe even feel with your hands. But the energy is there. And so I was reading the energy, but I couldn't read whose energy it was. And so I simply did this. I said, okay, whoever you are, I need to get up very early in the morning. So please go away, leave me alone. And then after that, it was done. Uh, the, the entity never disturbed me for the rest of the night or anything until the next morning. The next morning, I'm up at 4 o'clock. I do my regular routine, getting ready to head out the door just in front of 4:30 in the morning. And my work phone, my dedicated Department of Defense telephone rings. And I say, oh shit, this is either going to be really bad or a wrong number, because I had been getting wrong numbers on this phone for a couple of days. And so I just immediately just turned the phone off because I figured, well, if it's important, it can wait till I get to my truck uh, or to the office. And so 15 seconds later, my house phone rings. I said, oh shit, this is going to be bad. Whatever it is, somebody really needs to contact me, because there are only a handful of people at the time that had my DOD telephone and my house phone. And outside of work, those were the only 5 people that had it, because they were the only ones that I felt necessary to be able to contact me, because that phone number that they used also bounces on my satellite phone. So I can always be reached back then. And so anyway, when I picked up the house phone, it was Oakland Police Department, and the officer named himself and said, "I have very bad news for you, but your mother has passed away." And it's like, what? And I said, "Dad's there?" And he said, "Yeah, your father's okay, but he's requesting you to come up to the home to help him." So rather than going in, I immediately phoned in to my office after I got into my vehicle to head over to my parents' home in the Oakland Hills. And when I got there, uh, um, the police officer came up to talk to me. He said, "We have an estimated time of her passing." And I told the officer, "I already know what time she passed." And he's looking at me like, "What? How would you know? You were just notified." And I said, "You won't believe me if I told you." And he said, "Try me." And so I said, "Well, last night at 11:30, I had a tapping on my shoulder like this." I was telling the police officer, and then I could see the eyes rolling on the police officer. He's like, "Oh, we got a nutcase here." And a lot of folks who are agnostic or don't believe would not believe something like that. And they say, oh, that was just your imagination, um, and leave it at that. But the message that I kept getting is that I'm leaving and I won't be back. Uh, that was the energy. It was an energy that was leaving. And I didn't know whose energy it was until that morning when I received the phone call. And I said, oh, that was Mom saying goodbye to me. That's what that was. And I felt bad in the way that I addressed the situation. But again, I didn't know what the energy's motive was at the time, because number one, I'm still pretty sleepy and groggy. Number two, the energy had no identifier. That was the thing, because an energy, once it leaves the body, it is just energy. It has no longer the identifiers of the person. So that's why I could not identify the energy through my chi energy reading. So that was one of the reasons why I told it to go away, because as far as I knew, everything else was good. But there are spirits around us all the time. I feel them, and I at times do communicate with some of these energies that are present, that we cannot see, nor can we touch or feel. But they are present. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're really evil, and sometimes they're just playful. But there are energies out there, and most people will go through life without ever experiencing these energies or seeing these energies. And sometimes you will, if um, the 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 energy has a really close tie to you. That's what could bring the difference, where you could sense their presence, even feel them, or even hear them. Because one of the things that here's the real capper. After my mother passed, and we were down at the funeral home, the whole family, the nieces, everybody was down at the funeral home making plans. And one of the nieces, the youngest one, she was really freaked out on this, because she's looking at grandma deceased in a box at the funeral home, and she's still dressed in her nightgown. So it's very distressing to the grandchildren at that point. And the youngest one said, "No, I'm not going to grandma's funeral. I can't accept this." And so we just kind of left it at that. But because she said that in front of Mom's deceased body, and I could still feel her presence in the room. And I said, "Oh shit, this is going to end up really bad tonight for my niece." And sure as it can be, that night, Grandma, her energy appeared. I mean, appeared before the youngest granddaughter. Freaked her out. And there were no words exchanged, but there was a communication uh, between the minds. So that was really interesting. And my youngest niece, she still remembers it to this day. It freaked her out for a whole week. She could not even go in her bedroom to do anything. She was so freaked out by it. And the reason why I say took a week is because that's how, when the actual funeral and the uh, um, putting her in her niche with her urn was completed. And once that was completed, everything settled. But the niece, she ran into my sister's room and said, "Grandma's here. She's mad at me because I said I wouldn't go to her funeral." And she said, "Didn't Grandma say that?" She said, "No, she said it through my mind, and I could hear her voice very angry." So be aware that spirits still have feelings, and especially if they have a close attachment to any of the living. Hopefully that didn't freak you out too much, but you know, those are still some of the memories in our family about mom and grandma. Thanks for joining me today. We'll be right back. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers, living and deceased.